Hey there, welcome to the NBA DFS build, where we break down every NBA game in an effort to help you build the best lineups possible. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined by Taylor Smith, and we will be going game by game, highlighting the top plays that need to be in your lineups. Our breakdowns are DraftKings centric, but you can use our analysis wherever you play. Today's show is for Thursday, February 1st, which offers up a little 4-game main slate. Do us a favor and like this video if we help you in any way. And if you want to see more of what we're doing, subscribe to our channel, the DFS Build, so you get alerted for future episodes. You can also find us on Spotify if you prefer audio only, and that link can be found on our YouTube page. This video is also sponsored by DFS Hero, which has a versatile lineup optimizer and plenty of features that can help you score a GPP takedown. Right now, you can actually get a 15% off discount when you sign up using our link, which is located in the video description below. It's worth noting, by the way, that DFS Hero, their tools are pretty cool. They helped spot some really good plays yesterday. SGA, Vooch, Kawhi, and many others popped in their system. We'll actually be using their system in the projections for this video, so be sure to check out the tool and access the discount if you're interested. So today is a pretty small 4-game slate, but it also is super troubling because there's not much concrete information out yet. There's several big-name injuries to monitor. But right away, Taylor, we got a 11-point spread with the Celtics hosting the Lakers. Celtics obviously favored. They never lose at home, basically. This game is a 241 total. Both Anthony Davis and LeBron James are questionable. And judging by the spread, I would imagine somebody is sitting here. But, that aside, do you like anybody for the Lakers today?
That is
here.
What?
I was just pulling up the projections here on DFS Hero.
That is a weirdly wide spread. Davis missed the other night, of course, but that was a back-to-back. Not really sure what to make of that. James, of course, kind of has that Q tag every day. He's all the way up to 10-4, which I think is the highest we've seen all year for him. But Davis, of course, still only 10. He's always underpriced. He looks good, even in a tough spot. I think he's fine. If one of them's out, I guess Russell and Reeves will again look good. We had Jackson Hayes start over Christian Wood in the last game. Both kind of got there. If AD's out, that's something we could look to again. But yeah, it's kind of a wait and see as of now. There could be value here, but if they're at full strength, it's a lot harder to have a lot of faith in anything.
Alexa, turn off. I'm just going to turn off the music because I feel like it's maybe a little bit too loud. Okay, yeah, I 100% agree. Obviously, we don't know for sure what's going to happen with James and Davis. If they're in, they both look good to an extent. I mean, James at 10-4, that's, to me, kind of an easy fade. But if he's in without Brow, I can understand why he'd be priced up there. I guess for the studs, I'm looking at Davis. They're not in a great spot. It's not fun to play against Boston in Boston. But if either of them are out, yeah, D'Lo, Reeves, both look appealing. So it's just a situation to monitor. And then obviously Taurean Prince, Jared Vanderbilt, Rui, and maybe even Christian Wood again, they would pop if Anthony Davis or James sit. So not much we can glean from the situation right now, but I would imagine based on the spread that one of those guys ends up sitting again. All right, on the other side, you got Boston. Jason Tatum leads the way. He's got a pretty good projection, and he is still too cheap, even though his price has come up $600 since the other day. Who do you like for Boston today?
The one I'm kind of getting to most seems to be Holiday for 6-3. Kind of skeptical of the ceiling there. He's not, the most comfortable option with everybody in, but he's cheap enough, and this slate's small enough to where I think he's playable. Porzingis, I guess at 7-5, you can make a similar case for. Minutes aren't great for him. Been hurt lately, 31 in the last game. It's enough for him to get there for 7-5. I don't think that's the worst idea. And Tatum, not really on my radar. I think there are other guys you can pay up for on the slate. I get it, but if he's going to be somewhat popular, I don't mind just not getting to him that much.
Yeah, he does look like the best Celtics play, per usual, to be honest. He's got a 24% boom rating, so the system obviously likes him quite a bit. I mean, when is Tatum not a decent play? I would probably shy away from him here just because of the betting line, and also his prices come up. And just to me, each Celtics guy is a fine play. But if you're in relation to the slate and with everybody at full strength, none of them are priorities. If you do a lot of lineups, sure, get a couple Celtics guys in there. If you're doing a single entry and you want to get different, you can do that. But right now, Tatum is actually carrying ownership, like you alluded to, 19%. And even the other guys, they're all 12, 13, 14% here. So if ownership is going to flock towards Boston in any regard, I will gladly look somewhere else. Moving on, one of the better games of the night, we got the Pacers in the Madison Square Garden taking on the Knicks. The Knicks are 3-point favorites. Tyrese Halliburton is questionable, but I think I read that he expects to play, although keep in mind he is still on that minutes limit, which came out of nowhere. He just was done playing the other night. He was playing on a minutes limit, and then I think for the entire fourth quarter, he was just done. He didn't come back at all. In a close game, too. So that is something to consider when possibly paying up for somebody like him. And because of that, his projection is not very appealing at all. So on the Pacers side, it is a good game environment with a 236 total. Do you like anybody here at all?
Mathurin being questionable is interesting. We saw Neesmith play 41 minutes the other night with Mathurin out. Feels like a chase. He completely went off in that game out of nowhere, but he's still cheap enough, 5-4. I don't mind getting to that, given the minutes potential there if Mathurin is out. If he's in, I suppose you can get a dusting of Miles Turner. He's a little underpriced. The Knicks defense with Mitchell Robinson out is not quite as imposing as it was previously. But Turner's minutes have been really wonky. It's hard to have a lot of confidence in him at this point. Siakam's back up to 8-4 with Halliburton back. I'm not really into that. And yeah, this team doesn't really look that interesting overall, barring injury news.
No, the Pacers guys tend to eat into each other. So unless somebody is out, I really don't like any of it. They do have a few guys here on the list, though. You got Mathurin, you got Jalen Smith, TJ McConnell. I think he was out in the last game. He probably is not going to play again here. I haven't seen his status, though. I mean, Halliburton being out would shake things up quite a bit and get me onto the Pacers, I think. But it seems like he's going to play, and even though he's limited, that's going to impact usage considerably. So I'm with you, man. I'm not really on Siakam. I don't really love Miles Turner here. Neesmith feels chasey, but at the same time, this slate lacks reliable value. So, I mean, if you get to Neesmith, I think it's okay. It's worth noting that nobody on this team has higher than 15% boom rating. So the DFS Hero lineup optimizer does not really love the Pacers tonight, and I don't think we do either. On the other side, the Knicks actually have an amazing spot. They're in an amazing spot with an amazing matchup hosting the Pacers here. Pacers obviously push the pace and are terrible defensively, one of the worst interior defensive units in the league. So I'm sure you like a lot of guys here. Who are you prioritizing for the Knicks?
Kind of the same stuff we've been doing with Hart, DiVincenzo, of course. Anunoby being questionable does throw a wrench into things. He's been out the last 2 games when we've seen these regulars, mainly Hart and DiVincenzo, push for 40 minutes. Achua played 40 the other night with OG out. Obviously wouldn't do that again tonight if Anunoby's in. It's kind of a wait and see. They also have Grimes that's questionable, which is interesting because he's still cheap. If Anunoby's out, he has a path again to 30 minutes, assuming he plays. But regardless of the news, I think Brunson, Hart, and DiVincenzo are still in play. I think Anunoby could play 40 minutes if he plays, so I think he's playable for 6-6. And Hartenstein, Indiana gets wrecked inside. He is going to be relatively overlooked relative to the other Knicks. So Hartenstein is kind of a differentiator on an otherwise chalky team. I think makes sense if you're entering multiple lineups.
Yeah, I can't disagree with any of that. The Knicks look very, very good on this slate. The only real issue would be ownership. So if OG is in, I would be a lot less interested in DiVincenzo. I would say if DiVincenzo is coming at 44% ownership right now, he does have a 36% boom rate, which is one of the highest of the slate. And obviously for his price and when you look at his projection, he's too cheap right now. He's a very tough fade. But if OG is in, I would feel a lot better about that fade because OG is going to push for 40 minutes, like you said, and he's going to eat into that usage just a little bit. So I will point out Miles McBride is a little bit interesting at 3.1K if OG and Quentin Grimes are both out, just because he's going to have to play some minutes off the bench. And he's 3.1 on a slate where there's no real, awesome value staring us in the face. And I like Quentin Grimes a little bit if OG is out and Grimes is obviously in. Moving on to the Cavs and Memphis, perhaps the worst game on the entire slate. Not in terms of spread. It's only an 8-point spread with the Cavs favored on the road here. but it's got a 215.5 total. It's pretty gross. The Cavs are at full strength. I haven't heard of anybody resting yet. Darius Garland is on the second leg. Oh, no, yeah, they played last night. Yeah, he's on the second leg of a back-to-back set, so you never know because yesterday was his first game back. But how do you feel about Cleveland tonight?
You can make a case for Mitchell. We saw last night that there's still a ceiling here, even with everybody in. 9-9's pretty steep, but it is a good spot against shorthanded team here. Otherwise, Mobley limited, Garland limited, LeVert not intriguing with Garland back. I guess 8K for Allen's okay, but with Mobley in, he doesn't have as high a ceiling as he otherwise would. Yeah, this team looks like it's among the worst on the board tonight.
I'm just checking real quick how many minutes Garland played. Yeah, you were right. 20 minutes. Yikes. I mean, he was pretty.
They said 20 to 24 before the game. So.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't catch it. I think we both were kind of off of him regardless, but you're also right about Spida last night. He was a really good play. So I'm with you on Spida in theory, mostly just because it's 4 games and there's not that many true studs to work with here. So if you're looking for just pure upside and raw points, he is a good play in a vacuum here. And Memphis is not a very tough matchup, except for the fact that, with a bunch of skeleton crew guys, they might try to slow it down. But yeah, for the most part, I'm not really into Cavs. On the other side, you do have to be somewhat interested in the Grizzlies, as disgusting as they are, just because they provide value. And due to all their injuries, there are going to be guys with a lot of usage coming their way. John Conchar is on the injury report, so he could miss. Luke Kennard, is he out already?
Doubtful.
Doubtful. Okay, well, that's good. Bad for Luke Kennard, good for us, because then that solidifies somebody like Scottie Pippen Jr. for me, probably. It's probably going to make him a core play for me at 4.7K. Right now, he's only got a 12% boom rating. If you eliminate Conchar from this equation, he looks way better as well. So who you liking from Memphis? I'm assuming you like Pippen a good deal here, assuming Conchar is also out, maybe even if he's in.
Yeah. Both Jacksons, honestly, are playable. GG's 4.9, so he's not as cheap as he was the other day, but small forward, power forward's useful. Aldama's questionable, so perhaps it's another Tillman, GG Jackson kind of night. Tillman played a ton of minutes. I don't know if it was the last game or the game before that, in a starting role. He'd been limited before that, so I guess he's not limited anymore. 5-3 looks pretty good for him, especially if Aldam is out. Vince Williams plays a ton of minutes. Don't think people are going to want to pay 6-4 for him, but he could play 40 minutes in this game, so I do think he's in play. Yeah, there's once again a lot to consider from Memphis. Aldama looks like the biggest domino for now, he and Conchar, so going to have to wait on that news. That game starts at 8 Eastern. Yeah,
Vince Williams is a really, really underrated play, especially because there's going to be ownership flocking to those Knicks guys. Whether OG is in or out, OG, Hart, DiVincenzo are all around the same price range and project way better. But Vince Williams is a good play. So he's an interesting pivot for tournaments. I don't necessarily think I'd prioritize him over those guys, but he's worth noting. Jaren Jackson Jr. obviously looks pretty good here. For the most part, though, I'm looking at Scottie Pippen Jr. and Xavier Tillman. I just like the value that they provide. They're going to play a good amount of minutes here. Conchar being out would just help Pippen. I'm probably on Pippen even if Conchar is in. And Aldama being out would obviously boost Tillman to be a core play for me. I think he might be anyways, just because he's cheap. All right, moving on to the last game of the night. The Sixers traveled to Utah to play the Jazz. They will be without Joel Embiid because he played and looked like hot garbage in his last game and left injured, so he might miss a considerable amount of time, actually. They are 5-point dogs. Tyrese Maxey is on the injury report. He's questionable. They're still without DeAnthony Melton, and Nicholas Batum is also on the injury report. I don't think the Batum thing matters that much, but it's worth noting just because Embiid's also gone, so if they wanted to go small, that could impact who gets extra minutes for them. Maxey is the big one to watch for the Philly side. I love him if he's in, and if he's out, everybody on Philly is playable. With either scenario in play, who are you liking for Philly?
I think Tobias is the best play on the slate at any position right now. 7K flat's just too cheap without Embiid. He's going to get a ton of usage. The minute should be there. Game has a tight spread. Utah plays at a fast pace. They do not play much defense. So Tobias, regardless of Maxey, I think is excellent. Maxey, like you said, looks good if he's in. No idea if he will be. He's been out for like 3 games now. Beverly and Oubre should see minutes no matter what. Beverly would look better if Maxey sits, but he's not all that cheap anymore at 5'6". Paul Reed, I could see people kind of going there because we already know Embiid's out, but $6K for him. It's not like he's been playing tons of minutes, even with Embiid out. Like he played 42 minutes in one game against Denver, went crazy. So the ceiling's there, I get it, but not really a great value anymore. And that is pretty much it for them, I think.
Yeah, Reed is just a volatile player, so I think you're just it's tough because his price is not terrible for the potential role he's going to have, but 6K is also not very cheap. That said, I mean, every Philly starter is in play for me. I love Maxey. I'm with you on Tobias. He's definitely going to be in most of my lineups. Oubre is a fine play. Bev is still okay. Even with Maxey in, Bev's going to get minutes. He's fine at 5'6". If Maxey's out, Bev might be a core play for me if Maxey sits. Thing is, I don't think we're going to get news on this game before lock, and I hope that we don't. My personal strategy right now is to stack this game for the most part and just leave that flexibility. So, come 9 p.m. Central, I can make those decisions and, hopefully it's a good strategy. All right. So last bit of action here, we got Utah on the other side of this game. If I didn't mention, it does have a 238 total. So Utah's defense and pace obviously contributes to that significantly. But they don't actually have that many guys that pop. How are you feeling about the Jazz?
I think this is the best team on the slate to target. They just have so much value. It's volatile, and there's no telling how it's going to look on a day-to-day basis. But, Olynyk, Chris Dunn, and George are all under 4K. Fontecchio's just over it. Kessler just over it. Collins, you can argue, is underpriced. Clarkson under 6K. Sexton, 6'6". Volatile playing time, but ceiling is there. We know that. And Markkanen, of course, is the one guy that you feel fairly safe with regardless. I think you can get to as many as 4 of them in a lineup just because they are so cheap. Depending on news, I'm hoping to get less of them. I don't want to be building around Utah, but kind of the way it is. It's just how it looks right now. And I think, I think there's a case to be made for pretty much anyone in the rotation.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this off air. And while I agree that these guys are going to be interesting because I like this game and I like Philly a lot in this spot, they don't pop. They don't, like, the projection system is not going to tell you to play Jazz, I don't think, tonight. Colin Sexton has a 22% boost rating, and that nobody comes close to that on the Jazz. I think Markkanen's always viable, and he's definitely viable today. But it's going to be tough to pick the right Utah players on this slate. There's no doubt about it. You can honestly make a case for pretty much everybody, which is very scary, but I'm with you. I think it's a very stackable game. I just love the idea of stacking this game for environment, but also just because we don't know yet what's going to happen with Maxey. It will be interesting to see if we can find like that one stud from the earlier games and then stack around it. But we're going to have to hit it right. All right, so looking at the slate overall to wrap things up here, if we look at the ownership, right now DiVincenzo is coming in as the most owned player. As things stand, I would imagine we're going to want exposure to him. But are you eating that chalk fully, and is there anybody else that is a projected for high ownership that you will not be playing?
I could see going under on Sexton and Tatum if they're popular, just because there are alternatives in those ranges. Tatum in particular looks over-owned to me. Same with Jared Allen. I'm not really psyched about paying 8K for him with Mobley in there, assuming Mobley's good on the back-to-back to go. I'll be eating DiVincenzo, Brunson, Josh Hart. I think those are good plays. Tobias Harris, like I said. And a lot of Utah.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on the strategy of I might be going away from the chalky Jazz players. I mean, if Sexton's going to be chalk, I'll pivot to Clarkson. And if Keontae George, Chris Dunn, if Kelly Olynyk, if they're going to be chalky, then I'll just go use Fontecchio or something, And I'm going to be more on the 76er side of that game anyways. And I'd rather try to maybe work in Markkanen instead of paying for all these cheapies. Markkanen is the only Utah guy that exactly what you're getting, So I'd rather get away from the volatility if I can to some degree. If we look at boom rating here, the top guy is DiVincenzo and followed by Brunson. As far as the boom rating goes on DFS Hero, who stands out here as one of the top guys that you absolutely have to get in, besides DiVincenzo and Brunson, because we already talked about them?
Definitely Tobias Harris.
Yep, I'm in agreement. All right, that does it for the slate for the most part here. It is a tiny 4-game slate, and honestly, we don't have concrete news for everything just yet, but hopefully going over these games and highlighting some of our favorite plays helps you build your lineup to some degree today. If that is the case, please give us a like below this video and also consider subscribing to the channel. And we'll see you at the top of the GPPs out there. Good luck.